The world is much different today than it was 40, 50, or even 60 years ago. Technology has propelled us forward in ways that we never could have imagined. In today's video, we will take a look back at some completely normal things that we no longer do. Remember when we used to plan our schedules around a TV show that we wanted to watch? This would have been long before the days of DVRs or even VCRs. But if you missed the show, then you may have to wait months to see it as a rerun. Another thing we used to do is plan our bathroom breaks during commercials because there was no way to pause what you were watching. You would sprint if you had to get to the bathroom and make it back in time to not miss anything. There once was a time when kids were dropped off at malls by their parents and then they had no way of being reached. This was long before cell phones were really common, of course. When it came to leave the mall, then you had to call your parents on a payphone to come pick you up or just schedule a specific time in front of a specific place out in front of the mall to be picked up. If you ever made a mixtape back in the day, then you certainly understand the work and the headaches that went into making it. It was very common to wait by the radio with a tape recorder so that you could record your favorite song. If the DJ wouldn't stop talking, then there's no telling how long you would have to wait to hear it again so that you could record it with no interruptions. MTV may have been one of the biggest things to come out of the 80s. It exposed us to many bands that we may not have actually seen otherwise. This was also something that you could wait hours in order to catch your favorite music video playing. Kids today will never understand being completely bored on a long car ride. Long before movie players and cell phones, we had nothing to do other than stare out the window. How many times were we singing along with a song and yet we had no idea what they were actually saying? We thought we knew, but not everyone printed their lyrics on the albums that we purchased, and we certainly didn't have Google to help us out. Fan clubs may still be a thing, but they were even a bigger deal long before we had social media. You would typically join these fan clubs through the mail, and then you would get cool things back in the mail like newsletters, pins, and buttons. If you were going to a friend's house back in the day, then you were going to have to leave a number with your parents so they could call you in case they needed to. Today, this is probably not as common now that kids have their own cell phones. Before 9/11 happened, people could drop off or greet friends and family at the gate inside the airport even though they didn't have a plane ticket. Security today is much tighter all the way around, and it is no longer possible to do this in the US. Long flights could be somewhat of a bore as well. It was always a good idea to bring your own reading material as there was only so much you could stand looking at the seat in front of you or the barf bag. Later on, people got spoiled with movies that would play. In those days, you were stuck with whatever was playing, but now there is a whole array of different options. Today we are all spoiled thanks to GPS, but there was a time when we were part-time navigators in the car. We all read paper maps if we had one, and they were extremely handy when we were out of town in a new area. A trip to the video store was always a special treat, and especially so during the peak of the VHS years. However, if you didn't get there early, then you were going to miss out on that new release because they only had so many copies to rent out. Another thing we had to do was rewind the cassette tape. There was nothing worse than getting a movie where someone forgot to rewind it. Many of us used to memorize various numbers of both friends and family. You never know when you might have to give them a call for some sort of emergency. Cell phones have taken this away for most people, and some people barely know their own number. There used to be a time when we all had our own address book, which had all the contact information for friends and family that we may have contacted less often. Maybe we called them, or perhaps we wrote them a letter. Either way, it was all inside this book. And remember when you had to break out the actual phone book to find someone? Now you can do the same thing with just a quick search on your phone. If you want to go to a concert today, then it's just a few clicks away on your phone or computer. But there was a time when you had to get them in person, either at the venue or through Ticketmaster. Sometimes people would camp out for days in order to get tickets to their favorite band. Getting movie tickets is something else that has changed. Sure, you can still get them in person, but now there are kiosks and even app options. There was also a time when we all just looked in the paper for showtimes. Later on, we got spoiled when the theater had a pre-recorded message to listen to. All we had to do was wait for the message to roll around to the specific movie that we wanted. Today, it's all just a few clicks away on your phone. And now, trailers for new releases can be seen just about everywhere versus how it used to be shown only at the theaters. Today, you may not have much of a need to check out a library book with everything going digital. However, if you do, it is much easier. Remember looking through the card catalog and then going to the location just to find out that it wasn't there? Rats, someone checked it out. I guess I gotta come back another time or even another day to get this book. While we are on the subject of books, how about researching something in encyclopedias? It was time-consuming, and you had to hope that there was enough information there for what you needed. If not, who knows what you would have to do next? Now that's just a few clicks away as well. When answering machines started becoming more popular in the 80s, people would screen their calls by listening to the message that was being left before they picked up the phone. Caller ID then took it a step further and let us know who exactly was on the phone a lot quicker. Gone are the days of answering every call without knowing who it is. How many of you remember getting up early to look at the paper and see what the weather was going to be like for that day? Eventually, we got spoiled with the Weather Channel, and then we would hope that our local forecast would be on when we tuned in. Today, our phones have certainly got us spoiled with the weather readily available at any time. Something else that the phone has put a big dent on is wristwatches. Sure, they are still needed and make great fashion accessories, but they aren't worn by the masses anymore. Perhaps you see an Apple Watch or a fitness watch, but that isn't quite the same. And how many people used to call the number for time and temperature? Does anyone even call that anymore? If you've been around long enough, then you've certainly seen many changes in photography. We used to use films such as the 110 or 35mm. We also had to bring the camera up to our face and squint through the little viewfinder. Even if you used one of the Polaroid cameras, this was still something that you had to do. Now most of us who are not professionals just look at the screen, take the picture, and it's all there digitally. We instantly know what we have taken and whether or not we need to do another take. We no longer have to guess or wait an hour or weeks to find out. The world may have changed, but we will always have our memories. Who knows which direction we are headed in next, but rest assured that it will certainly change again. I hope you enjoyed this little walk down memory lane. What are some of the things you remember doing that you no longer do? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.